Welcome back to Shop Talk number 15. 15. At least it's always 15 because I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think it's 15.
That's the way it is when you build guitars too.
Yeah. Well, the first 5 aren't.
A top?
Oh.
On the side? Okay. JK Law.
Okay, today we are going to talk about efficiency in guitar design and building and what efficiency means, why we strive for it, should we strive for it, those sort of things. The ins and outs of efficiency in guitar.
Now, are you talking about, like, you know, cutting the sides down with a handsaw is not quite as efficient as with
No. I'm talking
handsaw?
about efficiency as in how the guitar works as a music producing piece of wood thing.
wood.
Yeah. So yeah, like if for example, one example of efficiency is sustain.
Okay.
So when you play the strings, the energy that's coming from the strings going into the body of the guitar is not getting lost very quickly. It's
Right.
staying within the system and emitting more sound for a longer period of time.
Okay.
I think another example is volume, because you're plucking the strings and there's very little energy in the strings,
Right.
and you have to translate that into sound, right?
So the more efficient that can translate into sound, the greater the volume.
Yeah.
Right.
So, is that good?
Well, that's a good question.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I know how I feel about it.
Do you like a loud guitar?
Yeah.
Yeah. I do too.
Yeah.
Do you like a guitar with
Sustain.
maximum sustain?
I would say yes. Until you built one that I felt like had too much sustain. A little bit.
Mm-hmm. Which, and I think that's where it's interesting, because many luthiers today are trying to build with the maximum efficiency, so to get the most sustain, the most clarity in the notes. There's another way to, I get efficiency between the notes. So if you pluck one string,
Right.
let's see, if you pluck one string and then the guitar reacts with other frequencies,
Yeah.
then theoretically the efficiency isn't as good, because
So the more efficient it is, the less of the harmonics you're going to hear.
Yeah.
So to speak,
I
more
would
of
say
the. If you could get to do a pure sine wave, then that would be a purely efficient guitar.
Theoretically.
But the more you start to hear those harmonics coming in,
Yeah, I
then
mean,
you're
I guess,
saying it would be less efficient.
yeah. Well, I suppose less purely efficient,
Right.
because there's no loss of energy, right? That's just the laws of physics. The energy comes out as something.
Yeah.
So if you're translating into harmonics, I really like that.
Right.
And that's where I guess I actually have the issue with.
But so are you saying though? So before you get into that, issue, remember the issue though.
Which issue?
That's the issue that you have. It's an issue you have, so you better still
Yes,
have it by the
okay,
end.
I got it.
Okay. So if I could create a guitar that the sides and the back did nothing.
Are just reflecting
Right.
pieces
And the
of
top was in tune with the string that was being plucked, then it wouldn't produce any harmonics? That all the harmonics are coming from other parts of the guitar? Like, I'd be curious to know, is the top, when it starts to reflect, because it's going to start getting these waves that will interact with each other and starting to create shorter ones, that should create some harmonics and subharmonics naturally, because it's moving, and then it's going to clash at some point, I guess, unless you got the optimal side for that one note, but it would only
Right.
work for one note.
Yeah. But yeah, there's definitely by having the other parts of the guitar in there,
Yeah.
they influence how the guitar is reacting. So this is a good example is when you have a heavy guitar. So your back and sides are heavy, your neck is heavy.
Yeah.
Oftentimes those are clearer sounding guitars.
Okay.
You know, clearer.
Mm-hmm. But
And
yeah.
yeah, so because there's no interplay between the other parts of the guitar, so
Right.
no
Unless
interference, I guess.
unless the top was also thicker to kind of match the
Yeah,
other
I
parts,
guess so,
and then
yeah.
it would start to become
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
dirty again.
Yeah.
So you're saying that the heavier I build my guitar,
Mm-hmm.
the more I can get away with having a thicker top, which would last longer.
Well, that's where efficiency, I guess, goes down. 'Cause
Yeah,
the string energy is always going to be the same.
Right. So yeah. So it's still, yeah.
There's a happy or like I guess this is where the dilemma between like structure versus sound comes in, right? Because the lighter weight you can get it, theoretically, the more responsive it's going to be. But when you get lightweight, you get other issues like wolf notes, like
Right.
guitars blowing out, stuff like
But just
that.
breaking
Yeah,
guitars is
yeah.
not nice.
No, cracks.
It's kind of like you like oxygen. I like guitars that aren't broken.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
sure.
Anyway, so what was the issue then?
Oh, in terms of efficiency and clarity and sound. So, for quite a while, I was hunting for that efficient sound, the clear notes in the bass, and I built a couple guitars, one in particular, which was bought by a client who plays fingerstyle guitar. He loves it specifically for that because his fingerstyle is perfect for that. But it was so clear in the bass that there was not much. I want to go back to the interplay between the notes.
Right. Yeah.
When you play a bass note, it's so clear that you don't have the rest of the body adding its color to that note.
Right.
So when you play a chord on a guitar like that, it just sounds like a bunch of notes together.
Right.
As opposed to on a guitar that's responsive in many different frequencies.
Yeah.
Then you actually have a chord that sounds like a chord.
Well, except for I'm going to throw a little bit of an idea out there for you.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually an issue in recording,
Mm-hmm.
where people who are wanting, the old console or some kind of hardware, because it has that bleed between channels,
Oh.
and the different instruments will start to mix a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's not perceptible unless you were to take it and clean it right up and put it
Right.
through, which is what we do in digital.
Oh.
So people are saying that's what we miss. What's interesting though is there's some high-end engineers and musicians and bands who have actually grown to like that clarity
Mm-hmm.
and don't need that
Well, and in
that sort
theory,
of warmth there. So they've actually grown accustomed to it.
Mm.
So how much of what you're looking for is actually based on what your experience has been in the past?
Oh,
If we
yeah.
build enough clear, good, solid, efficient guitars,
Yeah.
maybe what we're looking
Perceptual
for change.
Absolutely, yeah. Once again, it's all what's the word? Subjective.
Yeah.
It's all subjective. But clarity,
But-
as far as recording goes,
Right.
it's much easier to record a clear, like a bass notes with clarity in them, right?
Yeah.
Is it? Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, you should be if that's what you really want. But if you're looking for that sort of
Warm.
that vibe,
Yeah.
I
I guess you
which
should
people
be
are
able to
dirtying it
capture
up anyway, then why can't you get that right out of the
Yeah,
guitar?
I guess. Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
In fact, I think that's part of what I like about these
Ember series.
Ember Series guitars.
Yeah, that's another great point because I'd say the Ember series guitars are far from efficient. Like they're
Right.
efficient. They're efficient in the way that they put out loud volume,
Right.
but sustain wise, they don't have a ton of sustain.
Also
Lots of
clarity.
overtones, lots of overtones.
They don't. They're
Everything's-
not clear, like totally clear.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say there's just more interplay happening
Right.
between the notes.
Well, because if you play it and you listen, you can hear the note, but then if you let it just ring, it does sustain, but it doesn't sustain on one note.
Yeah.
It seems to like weave around, which I think is awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
But I do wonder, and the interesting thing is that I got to play that guitar that he made that was really clear, and I loved it, fingerstyle wise. I don't think I would want that guitar.
Yeah.
I mean, I did. I loved it. It was like, whoa, that's how that sounds, but it's not what I'm going for.
Yeah.
It really just doesn't fit my vibe in
Yeah.
the long run.
Yeah, and
But I could see how somebody else would. But
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I have a story to go with this because it kind of fits with my subjective opinion, I guess, on sound and what I'm hunting for. And it was when I was looking for my cello, my forever instrument, and I tried instruments that were known as very high quality, good, like handmade cellos,
Yeah.
and in the classical world, they were very
Sought after.
sought after.
Right.
But I actually I dislike those ones.
Yeah.
I always went towards the warmer, mellower, not as clear, and I guess it's also in the type of music that I play. I'm not playing cello as a solo instrument where the melody has to, bark out.
Mm-hmm.
But it was interesting, like that was probably 13 years ago now, and I went towards that old mellow sound, even though it was a less expensive cello.
Mm-hmm.
I just fell in love with that sound.
Right.
So that's where I feel like right now with my guitars, I'm actually going towards that. And I'd say it's a little bit more towards like the vintage guitar sound, a little bit, but
Right.
with more sustain.
Yeah, interesting. So, the vintage guitar sound, though, was just a result of lack of maybe understanding of how to get a clearer sound? Or was it a style that people liked then? This is really what always kind of gets me thinking.
What is it
Like, could
based on?
somebody have then made a guitar, or is it over the time in which we have discovered new ways and had more opportunity, not only to try things, but to document it, to see what others are doing? We've been able to come up with some guitars that are clearer and then make a decision, whereas then they just kind of made the guitars. I don't know. Why, or do we like it because of that fact that that's how guitars were?
Yeah.
I don't like that part. But the beauty of it is that for us anyway, the more clear you want to make it, sometimes the weaker the thinner it has to be, right? Is that
No, not
true?
necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah, there's different ways to reach that, I would say.
Mhm.
But when you get to a certain thickness or thinness, I guess,
Mhm.
there's the top acts more. It's more floppy,
Right.
So,
then you
it'll
get stuck
react in different ways.
Yeah.
So that's where you get problems like wolf notes. So if you have a dead note on the guitar,
Right.
oftentimes those are tops that are really thin.
Huh.
So that's one reason I don't like the thin top idea,
Right.
other than durability and just for musicians that are touring and stuff, it
Yeah.
makes sense to have a bit of a thicker top. The thinner top also doesn't give you as much dynamic range, or headroom. Sorry,
Right.
it usually cacks out.
Which is dynamic range, right?
Well,
That could be both
Headroom,
directions.
yeah,
Headroom
yeah.
is the one end of dynamic range,
Yeah.
and the light sounds soft.
Yeah.
Sounds.
yeah, oftentimes a thin top will sound very loud when you play it lightly.
Right.
But then it has a ceiling.
So yeah, so like we want to have more headroom. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, in steel string guitars, I'd say. Well, personally, I want headroom.
Right.
In classical guitars.
But is there, before we get into the classical guitars, is there a place even in steel string guitars where you want that, and you have said yes? It is in the like finger style. You know, like that one you made. They kind of want it to.
You mean like ragtime kind of bluesy stuff?
Or even no, this like modern finger style guitars with a
Yeah.
ding 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 ding. You know, and they want to be able to just touch it and get the bright harmonics and you know, tapping it and.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I
Yeah.
guess you're right, because that's. Yeah, they want more clarity, and especially for like harmonics and stuff, the clarity it works really nicely. Yeah.
And they want to play soft, like little parts that they want it to kind of ring out, you know, because they'll often just brush a note on the way by.
That's the interesting thing though, is I think there is a way to build so that you have headroom, but you also have that ability to play lightly and have those. So.
But you don't want, like, here's the thing. So you say that, but I don't even want that. There are times when I want to just hit it lightly and I just want it to be like a ghost note.
Yeah, right.
You know, it's like with drums, there's a ghost note. Those ghost notes sometimes are the most interesting part.
Yeah.
So if you have, what I'm saying is, if you were talking about a lighter guitar, more efficient guitar is what we're calling it, is allowing those notes to kind of ring out too much, then you're losing that opportunity for ghost notes, because everything is kind of coming out loud.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I suppose, yeah.
So do you really want that 100%?
I don't know. Like, I feel, I don't know. I feel like personally I like it to a guitar to respond to a very light touch.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Yeah.
But
it's a tricky one.
But not as bright though. You know, light touch means that you can hear it, but like more like a ghost note rather than boom, like ding, 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 ding. You can still hear it. It's like ding, 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 ding. Whereas if it's really responsive, ding, 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 ding. It all sounds basically the same.
So that I guess it's that dynamic. So
not
only is it
so it can still be responsive but quieter.
Yeah.
You see, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I want from my guitar.
And I guess a good way to describe the quieter notes, or what I like to go for, is quiet but that still sustains.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah.
Like if you play a note quietly, it doesn't just die out.
Right.
Yeah,
and then classical guitars.
Yeah, I mean they want something totally different, right? They want. I'm not a classical guitar maker
Or player.
Yeah. But from what I understand, they want a lot of volume and sustain, I guess.
And
but
clarity.
the volume and clarity are like the main things that they want. And that's tricky because usually they're smaller bodies, and classical guitar makers are trying to get as much volume out of that.
So they will build more efficient guitars.
Well, efficient in one way, yeah.
Yeah.
But like you were saying earlier, that the strings have an effect, right? The steel strings as opposed to nylon strings.
Right.
I mean, we don't know the physics too much behind the difference.
We actually don't even know the force difference, do we?
No. No, I don't know how many pounds.
Interesting.
Yeah. But there's less tension on nylon strings, and they're nylon strings, not steel.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely different energy going through that system, right?
Yeah.
But it's interesting that those two types of guitars are looking for different types of efficiency oftentimes.
Right. Cool. So, why were we talking about efficiency?
Well, it was a conversation with a guitar maker on Instagram, actually, and it just sparked this, I guess, thinking in my head.
About being scientific about it.
Yeah. So this guitar maker does a lot of scientific testing, and I don't totally resort to that, but I think it's a really good idea as far as like consistency and to better understand what's happening.
Right. But what you're saying is, you're not trying to do the science so that you can get a more efficient guitar necessarily.
Yes. Yeah.
You're doing the science so you can get a consistently less efficient guitar where you want it to be.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is kind of important because some people get caught up in this idea of like, well, it sounds efficient. It sounds, what we're trying to say is sometimes a heavier, less efficient guitar may be the sound that you want.
Yeah.
Um,
Actually, interestingly enough, one of my past dealers who doesn't sell guitars anymore, his website had a breakdown of all the I guess like ratings of how a guitar reacts to a certain. I mean, he broke it down to like sustain to stuff like that, and then at the end he had this overall efficiency. And that would be a percentage.
right.
And I used to look at that number and think, okay, that's really high. That's awesome.
Right.
That's a good guitar.
And now,
Well, now it's like, wait a second. I don't like that really high efficiency.
yeah.
Um,
And so understanding that.
yeah.
Understanding that just because something is what it is, it is what it is. If they say it's highly efficient and it is highly efficient, that may actually mean that you don't want it.
Yeah.
Depending on what type of music you're playing.
Yeah.
Don't be fooled into thinking, well, oh, that's a high number of efficiency, so that's a better guitar. Maybe not for you.
Yeah.
It's not for me.
Me neither.
But, you know, that doesn't mean it's not for you. Like, knowing what you're going to get, I think, is important.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, where this conversation started from, really. Just people, you know. Because we can use, I don't know, have we talked about this in a... But yeah, people using certain terminology or whatever to sell the guitar.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, which is great. Like, if it is efficient and you're looking for an efficient guitar, which is really responsive and like everything is just, then they're telling you the truth. But don't look at that like as if that's now the better guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you were saying with the cellos.
Yeah. Efficiency efficient usually means better. But in this case, it's subjective.
Right.
So efficiency, as far as like a scientific model goes.
Right. There could be a sweet spot for the type of sound you're going for.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
you obviously don't want it to be a block of wood.
Yeah. I mean, my prime efficiency is 86.35%.
Uh-huh. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't find it that my pickups respond as well with that. I'm looking more for like the 75.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then, do you boost the pickup efficiency, or is that just?
No, you just turn up the volume.
Oh, right.
Which is cool because then you can drive the speaker harder and the amp, and then sometimes that's how you can get that little bit of extra distortion and harmonics brought in. Funnily enough, the more efficient, I didn't even think about this, the more efficient an amp is, the less you get that pleasing like sort of dirt and undertones and that people love. So a lot of people don't want a high, high amp or high watts, whatever it is. I should do more studying on this. But you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So finally enough, there's another perfect example.
Yeah.
There is situations where you do want it to be a loud, clean amp, but there's other times where it's nice having that little bit of inefficiency. Yeah. There's another example of kind of what we're talking about. I think you guys can please come into the comments or send us a message. We'll put your name in the next.
Yeah,
video.
let us know what your prime efficiency percentage is, because I would be interested to know, because I have to, cater to my.
Yeah, and we're not just saying this because we want more
Comments?
more comments. I mean, it really is fun
Yeah.
to have these discussions, and it really is fun to actually have other people disagree with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, it is.
Should we
It's fun.
say if you like this video, hit the thumbs down? No.
No, we don't need any more thumbs down.
Okay, alright.
We don't want to go the other direction either.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
Whoa.
Oh, you're getting your phone.
Oh, that's it.
Alright. Well, thank you for joining us for Friday Shop Talk number 15.
14. 15. 15! Yeah!
See you next week.
Peace.